And we'll be all on listen mode only through the talk, and that's only just to keep the conversation moving. We're trying to keep this as close to a half an hour, maybe a little over as possible, because I know you're all busy and you're giving us the time today. So I first and foremost want to thank you for joining us for that. Um, but like I said, after the talk, we'll open up the mics. We'll have questions and answers. Um, I want to create an atmosphere here of sort of open dialogue. I know we're going to present some information to you, but as you see something that's getting covered and you want to know more about it, or you want to have a conversation about it, by all means, shoot it through the chat. At the end of the talk, I'll read through some questions and address them publicly if we need to. Otherwise, we can distribute those to our staff where it's applicable and get directly in contact with you if need be. So for that being said, I guess we'll go ahead and get rolling. We're a couple minutes past, and so we got some good attendance. Again, looks like we got great coverage across the Cotton Belt. We're excited to have you all here, and so thank you again. I want to welcome you all. You're joining us for a first of its kind, sort of a first in a four-part series from the Cotton Trust Protocol team. And we're hoping to have these conversations, as we announced, that's going to be addressing seasonally appropriate topics. But what we're intending with this is to help you as producers, gen managers, merchants, marketers, have more granular information as far as what we have to offer for support systems and how you can best obtain, maximize your benefits, as we say here, through using the protocol system as we have it set up. And the idea is, again, to give this conversation an opportunity to talk about things that you couldn't otherwise get in a flyer or an email. So while you may have heard some of this information from some of us, hopefully it's more detailed and more pointed towards today's activities, real-time takeaways that are seasonally appropriate to the cotton industry as it is handled from the protocol. Excuse me. Jason, you want to go to the next slide if you don't mind? As you can see, we sent this out, and we're going to be doing this as a four-part series, today being the first one. And the general theme is going to be consistent through them all. However, there'll be different topics. So we're basically looking to explain the intricacies of the trust protocol and the value that the program is providing. And obviously, we all need to discuss what we can get for our crop, but the sort of background discussion that we want to share when it comes to cotton moving through the supply system will be a part of the conversation as it goes through into the next topics. But today we're going to be talking about harvest, obviously, harvest season and bale uploads, and some of the climate smart practices that are going to be seasonally appropriate following this harvest. And we'll touch base with you after this to see if you have any more questions, but we'll jump into these slides here. The next one. Again, I'm going to start and finish the conversation with this. This is your trust protocol team. We are regionally located to better service our producers, of course, but we also have a larger team, most of which are on the call. So by all means, reach out to anyone that you have relationships with at the protocol. We're here to, as a grower support service team, collectively. And for the most part, if one of us doesn't have the answer, someone will. So by all means, we're an open book. Please contact us if you can. So the next slide, we'll move into the content. Each of these quarters, we're going to have grow enrollment specialists that you can get to know more. We have 3 grow enrollment specialists, of course, and we have Tillman as a program manager. Each have their own strengths, and they wanted to take this opportunity to share what they could with this audience. I mean, we often hear from our leadership, but we feel like it's very necessary for you to get to know your grow enrollment specialists, get to know them, and have them have an opportunity to explain from their region the things they're hearing and seeing that's most applicable to you there. So I'm going to hand this off to Bailey Nesmith, if you want to introduce yourself, and I'll let you run with it.
Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. My name is Bailey Nesmith. I am the grower enrollment specialist for the Southwest and the Far West regions. I see lots of familiar names and faces on the call this morning, so thank you for joining us. And we'll go ahead and get started. JC, I'm ready for you. Okay, so this is a snapshot of our enrollment from this past year. So a reminder for everyone, because it's early, enrollment for the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol is from January through the end of April, and that'll enroll the crop that you're about to plant. So you did this enrollment in the spring for the crop that you're about to bring out of the field right now. So over 1,300 Trust Protocol growers spanning across the belt in all 17 states, and it equals about 2.1 million planted acres across the belt. So we saw another growth from the year before, and we're very happy with that. So if you are a grower and you look at your Trust Protocol dashboard, if you see all of the green circles and check marks with the green complete tag up top, that means that you completed the enrollment process all the way through. And that means that your bales are eligible to be uploaded as U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol bales. JC, I'm ready. How do we do this? Where does this happen? Gin managers, gin staff, co-ops, merchants, this is where you play a very vital role in this process. So growers completed the steps. Growers, we need to make sure that we're having the conversations with our gins and our marketers so that they know you're in the program and that they can upload your bales. JC, I'm ready. How does that look? So gins and merchants, depending on your software system, you'll upload bales for your growers to the Trust Protocol platform. From there, we check that PBI against the USDA data to verify that it's a valid PBI for these growers. Once that comes back to us, then we tell EWR down there, and that changes a character in the warehouse receipt. So it says that these are Trust Protocol bales. They can be marketed as such, and it allows everyone through the chain to know that these are Trust Protocol bales. That happens on the warehouse receipt, and that's with that bale throughout its time. So it's a lot of systems and a lot of programs talking to each other. But why does it matter? Why is it important? Well, we're in the middle of harvest in some areas. We're about to kick off in some others. We know that when you're harvesting is also the same time that you're trying to market your cotton as much as possible. About 52% gets marketed between October and January. So that's why our enrollment process is in the spring, so that you don't have to worry about the enrollment in the middle of while you're trying to harvest and market your cotton. JC? These are all the steps of the supply chain. I know most of us on this morning mainly stay over in the green side, but there's multiple steps that happen after the green. So having these bales uploaded in a timely manner allows every step of the supply chain to understand that those are protocol bales and that they can be used and sourced as Trust Protocol cotton, and we see that to the brand side. So that, the quick and easy, not easy, but the quick rundown of it's so important to get your bales uploaded and to have those conversations with your gins and marketers. We'll move now into the climate smart cotton side of the conversation today. I think that's where a lot of interest has come, and I'm so happy to have that. So with our Climate Smart Cotton program, we have 3 different levels. Level 1, a good chunk of our growers have already participated in level 1. Refresher, that's a $5 an acre payment up to 706 acres, and that's per entity. So that's step number 1, and we can move to step number 2. That's what we're talking about right now going forward. So in level 2 is where we adopt a practice change. We'll dive deeper into that down below, but that's up to $45 an acre, and we can pay that up to 3 years. Level 3 is the carbon inset side, and Chaz will touch more on that at the end of this today. So level 2, adopting a practice change. What does that look like? We've made some updates to changes this year. So Adopting cover crop for the first time. If it is the very first time that you have adopted a cover crop, it needs to be a single species. If you're one of the early adopters, we have room for you as well. If you have planted less than 4 species, you're eligible. If you adopt a 4 species cover, that makes you eligible for this $35 an acre payment. Different from last year, we're implementing strip till or no till to the program. So if you reduce your tillage, you're eligible for a $5 an acre payment. And then an add-on to either of those two above is the nutrient management plan. It's $5 an acre. And what we're building with the nutrient management plan is a file and a folder for each field covering soil samples, fertility recommendations, and kind of a whole picture as far as what each individual farm looks like. So these can be stacked on top of each other. That's where we can get up to $45 an acre for these payments. Enrollment for this is starting to happen right now. A lot of my Southwest guys have already gotten a head start on this. It's one that get with your grower enrollment specialist, whether it be Marin or Willis or myself, and we'll start this process with you. That's the main takeaway there is get with one of us and we'll help get the process started. We have a lot of great help with our Climate Smart grant, one of which is the Soil and Water Outcomes Fund. This morning we have Tim Huggins on. He's our backbone to our help on our side, and we surely appreciate him. And he's going to talk from here.
Thanks, Bailey. And thank y'all for having me. It's a pleasure, an honor to be here. So a little bit of background. The Soil and Water Outcomes Fund is wholly owned by the Iowa Soybean Association. So kind of first and foremost, we're a farmer-led, farmer-run organization. So anything we partner in, anything we do, we make sure that we keep farmers at the forefront of everything we do. We're not beholden to shareholders or anything like that. We're beholden to farmers, and so I think that sets us apart in a lot of ways. I'm not from Iowa. Hopefully, you can tell by my accent, but I'm in Southeast Georgia currently. So I'm our Southeast Programs Manager. So I help kind of liaison between the Soil and Water Outcomes Fund and the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol, and assist them with their Climate Smart Commodities grant. So kind of moving into kind of some nuts and bolts. We formed this relationship back with Cotton Incorporated several years ago as a pilot project. They wanted to basically ensure that models that people were using would work on cotton production systems in the Southeast. And so we developed that relationship. And then when Trust Protocol got their Climate Smart grant, we were selected as the measurement, monitoring, reporting, and verification partner. And so essentially what that means is we take all the data collected by Bailey and the rest of the team and enter it into our systems and model the results. And so what y'all are looking at there is something y'all will probably never see if you're participating. We try to take the heavy lifting and all the data input off of you. The grower enrollment specialists do all that, and then I help them implement that. But some of the data we're collecting, as y'all can see there, is planting data, cash crop, planting rates, tillage practices, tillage implements used, fertilizer rates, harvest dates. So we're collecting a lot of information, and we're mapping your boundaries as accurately as we can. And this is to produce the most accurate models possible. And so we look at 3 to 4 years in the past, depending on your crop rotation. If you've got a 3-year cotton, 1-year peanut rotation, we got to go at least 4 years back. If it's a little more of a simple rotation, like cotton and corn, we can just go 2 or 3 years back. But building out that past crop history and then looking into the future of what you're going to do once you implement a new climate smart practice really helps dial in those models and makes them as accurate as a model can be. And I understand that, a model is a model, but it's the best we have right now. And one of the ones that we use is Comet Farm, which is kind of USDA's gold standard. It's not perfect by any means, but we kind of took the idea that if it's good enough for USDA, then it's good enough, and we're going to run with that, and then we'll just update as needed as things become more accurate. But that's kind of the nuts of it. So we collect all that information, we run the models, it generates outcomes, and then to verify those practices, we go to every field every year, lay eyes on the practice, say, yep, okay, there's a cover crop. We throw out that little square there, and we also look at percent cover, and that doesn't affect the payments to the farmer, but it lets us build up a database, and hopefully we can use some of this real world data we're collecting to inform models in the future. So all of this is to get to a verification where our partners and USDA are satisfied with what's going on in the fields, and there's no we're not out there to police the growers. It's simply to collect the information. So moving on. So again, why is this important? Why do we collect so much information? There's been a lot of talks, in a lot of programs about, greenwashing, and maybe we're not actually doing as much as we can or we think we are. Well, we try to collect as much data to defend against that. We want our growers and we want our partners to have trust in what we're doing and trust in the outcomes that we're producing. And so while it may be a heavy lift on the growers and people involved at times, it is for all of our best interests, for the long-term viability of programs like this. We have to ensure that our outcomes that we generate can be audited. We can stand by them, and there's absolutely no way that somebody can come back and say, oh, you know what, that's not right. You aren't doing right. These credits or whatever are null. That is absolutely what we do not want to happen. So if you're participating in level 2 and potentially in level 3, which Shaz will talk about, just know that we're collecting all this for a reason, and it's to create the best outcomes possible and to make sure that these programs are valuable and feasible in the future. And so just bear with us. We'll try to make it as easy as possible. But that's what I'm here for, and that's what the field staff are here for. That's all I got. I'll be short and sweet.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue. So we're going to wrap this up here in the next 5 or 10 minutes. And so I wanted to touch on the monetization of this. So where does this all come back, and how does this create value for the producers? So as you've heard, and hopefully all know by now, with the Climate Smart grant, that's basically a tool for us to bridge the gap between the protocol bales hitting the market and creating its own market value, or hopefully creating its own market value, but incentivizing producers, or what we call sharing risk of a change that hopefully is a part of your agronomic solution. So first and foremost, we like to drive home the point. We're not asking a producer to do anything they otherwise wouldn't be needing to do to improve their production model. So this is about profit centers at the farm level. And sometimes those come with additional costs or new practices that you're uneasy about. And so we somewhat share the risk, and we refer to these as somewhat subsidized movements. But we're doing this both for producers and for brands. And so we're tasked with this grant to create a carbon inset market. That's part of the grant narrative and what we're supposed to work on. So I'm going to explain that for just a second. So we're here to build this market base. Right now, we have brands and retailers currently contracting with us for people who have started level 2 practice changes last fall. So we can trust in statement now, can say this is a real thing. We are creating it. And as far as I'm aware, one of the first in the cotton supply shed across the U.S. For carbon inset market. So we are building this as we go. So you just bear with us. We haven't spoken a lot about it because we wanted to make sure we can trust ourselves. We can trust the future of the market. And it is growing. We have a lot of great staff from CCI out there helping drive that with us. So this is why brands are interested, in other words. So the marketplace beyond the farm gate is interested in sustainable source fiber, emission reductions, and Scope 3 emission reporting for how they produce the products that they're putting out in the marketplace. Next slide. And I wanted to quickly touch on this because it does get confusing for folks who haven't been embedded in this conversation for so long. I, being one of them, am learning this as I go as well. But hopefully I can explain some of this to the extent that you can at least rely on it and trust it and see its tangibility. It's not a a green statement or a greenwashing activity. It's a physical, tangible change, like Tim has just mentioned. You're making a practice change. We're physically going to the field, documenting that, sending this data up to the USDA comment model to fact check them. So they're running these models and on these assumptions that these practices have these implications towards carbon. Well, we can physically, tangibly say it did or did not, to help these models improve themselves over time. So that's the benefit of this grant and why they're supporting us to the extent they are. Real quickly, what it comes down to in a summary: corporations, brands, retailers, whoever is needing to acquire carbon insets as a part of their goals, comes to the Cotton Trust Protocol. We together engage with you as producers. This is mostly the grow enrollment staff. Tim, myself have done this. We offer these opportunities to you as farmers. So these practice changes are not the only practice changes that have greenhouse gas implications. It's just the ones that we were approved for the grant. So we're beholden to what we have written in the grant. We have to stick with these practices because we know the outcomes that we hopefully can attain from them. So we were given these 3 practices that Bailey has mentioned. You make any of those changes starting now going forward on a field by field level, we go out and quantify that physically. Once the practice is changed and is monitored and verified, as you see in this chart from our staff, you now have greenhouse gas insets to sell. And I will make the comment that this is your carbon insets. We are here to create a market as a value-added opportunity to you as producers, because that's our job at the protocol, but also grant mandated that we create this carbon inset relationship. We'd make no money on it. We do a pass-through from the relationship from the purchaser to the grower. But if you, for some reason, have a desire to not sell your carbon because you don't want to, that's fine. You don't have to. And secondly, if you have a better option, if you know of someone that'll pay you more than the arrangement we have set up for you, you're by all means allowed to do that. Take this package that we provide you in your dashboard and go sell it. So this is just a value-added opportunity we're creating for you guys at the producer level, is just a diversified income opportunity with little to no more lift than you've already done if you've done these practice changes. Next slide. So I put this calculator up here. This is an interactive calculator, but I'm not going to go through that necessarily. But I can share this with you if you want to play with this to put your own numbers in. This is meant to be intimate based on your needs, but this is not a hypothetical. This is actually real numbers, but from a farm that we have worked with through the grant. And this basically shows you the full implications or opportunities that you're going to get if you maximize your level 1 opportunity for 1 year. And if you implement, let's say in this example, cover crop, but only 450 acres are applicable for whatever reason. But you get that for 3 years. And let's assume in this circumstance that I'm giving you an example of, you're able to reduce your nitrogen or fertility program by $10 an acre for whatever reason. Your soil samples are allowing it. The cover crop you use is leguminous and is offering you some nitrogen offsets. This is all the full implications. The $91,000 after 3 years is what you'd basically get by doing 450 acres of cover crop and your level 1 incentive. I also have built into this the carbon inset. We are currently marketing them at $20 a metric ton. This is again an introductory rate for all the purchasers out there to help kickstart the process, make the market drive demand, but that price will perpetually go up as the market demands. So we are currently looking at that needing to double going into the future. That being said, that extra $36,000 is on top of the payment you've already received from the grant to incentivize you to make those changes. So there's no other lift other than continuing the practice changes. You now have this carbon inherently built into the work you've already done. Again, hopefully creating an added revenue stream. Next slide. So again, just want to quick summarize. We're here at the end of our time, and it looks like we're perfectly situated to answer some questions. So I'm glad to have that. This, in summary, is just some of the benefits. We want to continue to drive home the point. All topics and all discussions that I have and our team has in this webinar, as well as in the future, is tied to the theme of how we support growers, and how we support our gins and gin managers, merchants, and marketers, create the connectivity needed to find these little niche value-added opportunities that you may have. We're here to be reliable. Like Tim said, we're accumulating this information for trustworthiness, verification. No one finds value as much as a program that has this type of robust backing to it. So we're pretty proud of what we're doing, and we appreciate all of you participating in it and jumping through the hoops and going through the enrollment process. And now that you're in, hopefully we can realize some of these values, if only from this carbon market or grant that we have. If you want to go to the next slide. Again, a summary of the Climate Smart program, just enhancing your profitability, hopefully, or at least giving you something to prop on as a risk sharing opportunity. Next slide. All right. So again, in summary, the actionable next steps we want to leave you to take home with is think about your harvest and communicating with whoever you need to make sure the bales are getting uploaded. As Bailey mentioned, we want to make sure those bales are of volume and at a critical mass out in the marketplace as protocol bales, so they're visible to the marketplace at key times when the demand is up and they're looking to plan. These brands and retailers are forecasting a year or more in advance, and they want to know that they can rely on Cotton Trust protocol bales being in the system. And the only way to do that is to make sure we're timely with getting this process done. And I feel like we're doing that quite well now and looking forward to the future. New practice enrollment. Time is now. I know you're harvesting, but while you're on the picker or stripper, thinking about acres that might be applicable, shoot us a text, a call, whatever. We'll start the process for you. We are mandated to put as many acres as we possibly can in these practice changes, so we're not worried about running out at this point. There's no limits at this point. Call us. We're going to do everything we can to get them all in. Use this grant funds to get to the ground as we intend to the growers. And then our next webinar will be January 29th. You'll hear from Tillman. I know many of you probably have heard from him before, but he's our lead for this discussion. And we're going to go more into the enrollment, what it's needed for renewing, as well as what you might need to know from the supply chain side. So we have a lot of staff across the globe that I feel like would benefit this conversation, letting you have sort of an insight information to what happens after the gin gate or farm gate. And we'll have live examples of that. So I see questions are flying in. Here's our grow enrollment specialist. Again, Chaz Holt. I'm here in Georgia. Director of Field Programs, Tillman, is in Tennessee at our headquarters there. And then you have Bailey, who you just heard from. Marin is in the southeast in Georgia, but covers Alabama to the Atlantic. And Willis is in the Mid-South, covering the Mid-South states. So you have their numbers, screenshot that, take a picture, whatever you need. Reach out to us. That's what we're here for. So I'm going to open this. I think that's my last slide. Is that right, JC? Right. I'll leave that up for a second if you want to scan that. I mean, most of you on here, if you got the email, probably have the link. So we won't go too far into that. So I think if I understand this correctly, yep, I can go through some of these questions. I don't know how we want to do this. If we want to open up mics to ask questions as well, but I'm just going to start with a couple of the questions. Bradshaw's asked us, is level 1 closed or full? Level 1's basically always open at this point. We have one more year that was mandated in the grant, so the first 3 years of the grant to bring in producers for level 1. That being said, we do have a slight budget surplus because not all folks who enrolled were able to capture the 706 maximum. So there's some residual budget. We have about 300 left to go to meet our minimum, which is 1,650 producers that can get that level 1. That being said, that's just a minimum. We don't have a problem going over that because we do have a budget. And by all means, if we get new protocol members coming on for the next year or two, hopefully we have the money to fund that. So we definitely have them going into the future, this coming enrollment. Level 1 is still open. Who's buying carbon insets? What's the contract specs for the exchange? That's something that I would love to talk to you more about in person to person, but I can say it's right now we have contract agreements being written between companies like J. Crew, Gap, Macy's, Target. These are all our lead horses, but all of them, to be very clear, everyone that basically has climate smart goals at their corporate level that is our partners and have expressed interest, was just who steps out first is what it comes down to. So we're still referring to them slightly as pilots, but those who did practice changes in this past fall, we documented this past spring, created these carbon insets we currently have an inventory of. Those are on the market and being contracted now. So hopefully an added $16 an acre or so for the contracts we're written are going to those producers once they're all sold. How many bales have been uploaded by Jen so far? That's a good question.
Chaz, I can make a comment there. Daniel,
okay.
As of right now, at least for the 2024 crop, as Bailey talked about, especially South Texas in the middle of harvest, we have around 80,000 bales that have been uploaded into the protocol platform right now, and around 67,000 of those have been uploaded by some of our Gen members.
And last year it was 1.9 million bales, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So again, going back to that reliability and something that, I mean, we knew we had, but the visual component in the marketplace is just now coming. And so these buyers out there are starting to see we have that kind of volume, and we can continue to have it as long as you guys participate. That creates the demand from what we can tell. Looks like Tillman's responding to a couple other questions. Let's see. How would a buyer know whether a bale is or is not a CTP bale when viewing a recap? Unfortunately, my recaps through PCCA do not indicate that. Those changes have not been made as of yet, although it has been requested. I know that is a topic that we are currently handling, and that will be something probably we can reach directly out to you, Kelly, on that. All we can do is when these things come to us, we address them as we know it. So I appreciate you bringing that to our awareness. We want to make sure the protocol is visual in every form and format out there. So we're going to do what we can to help that. If we've been paid on cover crops through programs like FSA or USDA, can we still get cover crops through the Climate Smart Grant? Historically, yes. The way this would work is additionality on new field by field level. So if you received, let's say, an EQIP grant for cover crops, and you're currently using them on certain fields, and it's over, but you intend to continue using cover crops, those cannot be used for the grant simply because they've already been cover cropped. So any fields that you add going forward that you don't access USDA funds for, we can cover the cost for. So it's, again, field by field level. So the early adopters who've been doing cover crops forever but haven't done it on every acre, the acres that haven't had the practice changes on are what's applicable for the grant. There may be some more nuance to that, but you can add the multi-species if you weren't doing that first with the other grant. Again, it's just, think of it as additionality on a field by field basis. And hopefully I can explain that more as needed. Who can farmers talk to if they need help or mentorship with their practice changes? Grow enrollment specialists, Tillman, myself, Tim, all of us can certainly cover that for you. If you need more agronomic solutions, you want to have a professional with your soil sampling and other things, that would be your local crop advisors. I highly recommend, if you don't have them, if you're capable of using them, those services are very beneficial. And we will be glad to discuss what these options are and how that fits your production plan. Again, we're not making any recommendations. We're just simply here to facilitate practice changes that are already applicable to your operation, because we want any move you make forward to be sustainable, but also beneficial to your production plan. All right, so much of the structure is based on new practices, but producers have been executing many of these practices for several years. Is there a plan in place to reward that activity? Absolutely, we have every intention of doing something like that. We currently, the way the grant is written, because of the carbon inset connectivity for additionality, these practices aren't. but rest assured, us and our partners and everyone on the team is looking for new opportunities. So we're look at the Climate Smart grant as a funding tool. We're looking for additional funding tools that create that historical context. So we by all means want to find a way to reward or benefit the producers who have been making these changes to sustain those changes if the agronomic practices are struggling. But again, we're hoping these practice changes historically have been what is benefiting your production and not just simply for a payment. So we want to make sure they're sustainable, and we're happy to work with that any way we can. Stan, yeah, we can talk about multi-species cover crops. I've tried to simplify it. Again, we're mandated to follow practice codes at the USDA. Where we differ and deviate is we do have the flexibility to operate in the gray area or create the context on a grower by grower basis, not just black and white. So the 4-species mix is the practice code that we received for this. Where I have sort of massaged it is we at very least want to have one legume or broadleaf in that 4-species mix, and you can choose any of them, any species of the 4 species you decide, and at any ratio. We want to make sure we are addressing the goals. So the goals of the mixed species cover crop is soil health, soil building, organic matter, a few others that are listed in the practice code. So if we feel that you have made every best case attempt to address it at those minimum standards or more, then we can cover the mixed species cover crop. That's the questions that I'm reading is all I have right now. I feel like unless I'm instructed otherwise, open it up for questions that you might have that hasn't been addressed. Well, I'll take that as everybody's got what they need. I want to say once again, this has been great. As for our first time, I feel it's gone quite well. Appreciate the questions. I want to again make sure that you understand that as you participate in these calls from now and going forward, it is an open dialogue. Please, by all means, reach out to us. There's a lot of nuance sometimes out there and misinterpretations, and so we want to make sure we're doing everything in our power to be clear about how we can be supportive to you. And so when you do have these things that are restrictive or problematic in the way we've laid out the program, again, all you can do is let us know and we can do the best we can. I feel like every year we're making more and more changes to address the points you've all been making over the past few years. With any luck, we'll see some demand being driven and more incentives out there. So again, I wanted to say thanks to everyone for joining us.
And
Anybody else? Yep.
just they'll get an email when this is over with all these materials and links to other materials as well.
Perfect, Marjorie. Thank you. And share those with them as you get them as well. Please let everybody know that we're doing this on a quarterly basis. We'll send those updates as we get into the winter. And we do hope the best for all of you on harvest. This is our time of year. So the best of luck to everyone, and please stay in touch, and we'll talk to you soon.